The Cedric Maxwell Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Yeah, tell him, Max. We keep it 100 here.
All right.
So we expect you to do the same, Keith.
Okay. Yeah. Cedric his career went down after he left UNCG.
Whereas I was at UNC Charlotte.
Keep
even on the real now, okay? Wasn't even near no UNCG. He come, see, Josue, we get a special guest from Philly, and he come over here immediately getting wrong information.
Oh, I knew this was going to...
Tossing the black man out there like, he went to another school.
I knew this was going to be a great episode. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Cedric Maxwell Podcast. He is Cedric Maxwell. Of course, I am Josue Pavon. We're joined by a special guest, Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Did I say that right? I didn't say that right. Inquirer. I did say that right.
Yeah.
Keith, man, we've been, I don't want to say like back and forth, but because of the many times the Celtics and Sixers have faced each other in the postseason, we crossed paths many times, plenty of conversations over the years, and I couldn't wait to get you on here to get your perspective of obviously what happened in game one and then the contrast we saw in game two between the Celtics and the Sixers. So I guess we can start right there. I mean, Joel Embiid, the league's MVP, coming back after 2 weeks on ice. And, man, he had a encouraging performance, I guess you can call it. But at the end of the day, what everyone's going to remember is how it went down. That was a blowout victory for the Boston Celtics, topping them, in this game where it felt like everyone in Philly was trying to play their best for Embiid and his comeback and him being MVP. But my question is, do you think they jumped the gun? Do you think Doc Rivers and the 76ers should have waited to do this in game three in Philly?
I don't think they jumped the gun. And the reason being is because, like, from what I was hearing it's all about pain threshold, right? So you come back, you could play through that. Right. And the thing about it is, let's just say if they would have rested him and they would have lost, right? Then you bring him back in Philly and he looks rusty. He got to get his wind up. And then next thing you know, everybody's saying, how come y'all didn't bring him back in game two when you already split? You know what I mean?
Damn if you do, damn if you don't, right?
Yeah. And let's face it, like, what is Joel, like 1-9 against the Celtics in the playoffs? So it's kind of sort of, one of those things where you got to get him out there and you just got to get him in shape and hope that he play at a high level in a couple games,
Yeah, I looked at him and I think that he played. There were spots that he was very good. What he showed was he still had the quickness. Tate tried to drive by him one day and drive by him on one play, and he was able to block that shot immediately. Joel Embiid is an unbelievable athlete. When you look at him, I'm talking about speed, quickness, hand, all that stuff combined. But to me, when he comes back in the lineup, Tobias Harris suffers. He doesn't get his kind of touches. Ball movement stops. Harden was incredible in that game. So you have to wait for the big guy. And to me, the 76ers in that game, I don't care what you did or who they played in game one. They shot the damn lights out of that building. And they deserved to win because they shot so well. But you can't expect them to shoot like that every single night, when you think about playing in a big game series.
Yeah, that's true. And because the thing about it is, like, when you look at it, let's take a guy, DeAnthony Melton, for instance, right? So when the Celtics were shooting 71%, he kind of kept the Sixers in the game by going 5 for 5 on threes, right? So you're saying to yourself, this is a bench guy who's hot on the road in the first game, going 5 for 5. And then the second game, you're trying to look to see if he could provide that, and he just couldn't. I mean, I think a lot of it is, people look at it and they say, two things happen. People look at it and they say, okay, the best player isn't playing. But then, like you said, Cedric, you got Tobias and them, they looking at it like, yo, this is my opportunity to shine. The ball is moving, everybody's stepping up. And then you look at the Celtics and they're saying to themselves, like, look, man, they're not playing without Joel. You know, this going to be easy. And as much as people say they don't do that in the NBA, they do that a little bit, especially when you get off hot. So I think that, you know, it was like the Sixers got them on a good night, and then, you know, they made a little bit of adjustments in the second game. But in order for them to win, you know, I hate to say it, but DeAnthony Melton got to be closer to the guy he was the first game than he was the second one.
Why? Let me ask you this. Why you hate to say that?
Well, I mean, I don't want to put the pressure on him, but like, you know, it's one of the things. I don't want to put the pressure on the dude, but he has to be that way. And the one thing that I did notice, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was at, cover the team yesterday. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Joel getting the award, which was odd to me because it's happening in TD Garden. Yeah,
yes. Right? I'm glad you brought that up.
It was crazy. Because you saw, like, you see this Sixers stuff, and then you see these people walking around in green trying to say, is everything okay? And I'm like, okay, am I seeing this right? Like, is they literally trying to help these people out? Like, you know what I mean? So, but the thing that got me is Joel's the type of dude during pregame, like in the morning, he don't want to talk to no media, shoot around, right? He got that scowl on his face. And he was extremely happy to see us. He was talking like he spoke forever. And then he did like hits with ESPN, with the local TV. And I was like, he ain't playing. And he played. And I was like, yo, they going to lose. Because it just seemed like, because I don't know, but you can't, I don't think like when you in that mindset in a big game like this, a rivalry game where your team is taking L's, and then all of a sudden you got everybody telling you how great you are, and then you got to go into a hostile environment. It's hard to flip that switch, you know, I would assume. Yeah. And then for his team, it's like they went from that high on like, we beat the Celtics, to then all of a sudden the next day we celebrating this dude. And then when he comes in, it's like, if you notice, y'all, they would push the ball up, they get past half court, and then they would wait for him. And he would only go to the 3-point line. So it was like they was helping the Celtics out. Like, to me, it was a bad day for the Sixers from the start to the finish.
I'm glad you pointed out the fact that they were celebrating. Well, not even celebrating, but he was doing his speech and the MVP ceremony and all that was happening at TD Garden. I mean, listen, for someone who's been covering the Celtics team all season long, when they lose the way they did in game one, they typically respond in that manner. But having that type of energy or that extra motivation going into game two, I felt like, man, look out. And I'm glad Jaylen Brown, I felt like, was so locked in that he was barely speaking to his teammates before the game. He went right at him, especially on offense, and then guarding defensively. And I'm like, man, maybe these guys took that kind of stuff personal, that kind of thing personally, when I feel like that's something that we may have seen. And Max, you could probably agree with me on this one, something you probably see in the generations right before these guys, right? Like Pierce and Garnett. And those are the kind of guys I feel like that would be like, how dare they do this in this building? Though it wasn't mentioned, I feel like it did plant another seed, though, of motivation for these guys.
I think if you're looking for that as motivation, then you're in the wrong place. This is the big boys. This is the way the world is now is the communication is instant, and they can make places. You can be in Hawaii and they can make it look like you someplace in the ghetto. But what they did is like, look, this is, to me, the best thing for me would have been to see the NBA actually just wait for a day and then give Joel Embiid the award once he came back. You know what the schedule is. Yeah. It's only going to be one day, essentially. You can say Joel Embiid after the game MVP, but it can sometimes create a fire. I think the biggest thing about that game to me was the Celtics were pissed, and they just wanted to play their game. They felt like it was a game they should have won because offensively, you score that many points, you think you're going to win a game. And then you look at the 76ers, they barely could scratch anything in that game. And it said all the guys who were knocking down shots over and over again for the 76ers to keep it close, they weren't involved in that game at all. But
121 to 87 was the final score in game two.
One guy who impressed me, though, has been Reed, though. Their young center. He's impressed me with some of what he's been able to do. And maybe because he battles Joel Embiid so much in practice, some of those little moves and some little antics, have paid off for him. I remember he was under the basket, gave behind the back pass on the floor. So the Sixers have some things going, but at the end of the day, I believe that the Celtics are the better team. 76ers have the best player in Joel Embiid, but I think overall, you think about Brogdon and White, and you put all that combination together. I don't know if the 76ers can match that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and, this coming from a guy, who, all jokes aside, I always talk about the Philly-Boston thing, and I grew up in Philly. But when you look at the Celtics, when you look at the Sixers, the Celtics are the worst possible matchup. Like, I feel like, they are. Because you look at it, and you look at how the Celtics has played Embiid in the past. It's kind of sort of like, okay, big fella, you want to score? Go ahead, you're going to score. We're going to shut everybody else down. But now it's kind of like on the defensive end. You look at the Harden and the Maxey backcourt. They're not really good defenders. And when you look at the 76ers, they got a good defense, but their kryptonite is wings who can create their own shot, right? And also bigs who can come out and hit shots, right? So, and then also we look at it, and Harden and Maxey are not top defenders. So then if you bring in a Malcolm Brogdon, you go with a crazy lineup or whatever, then you bring in Malcolm Brogdon, then they really in trouble. And that's when he always gets off on them. He can get whatever shot he wants. They just don't have enough to guard these guys. Let's face it. So you look at Tobias Harris, who became an improved defender, but now you're saying that Tobias, you got to guard Jason Tatum. And we're in the years in the past, you're not putting him on him. You're not going to do that. But now you need him on him because those other dudes they got are too small or not as athletic, or they're either too small or too thin to guard him. So I think that's why I say, the Celtics are the Sixers like kryptonite, so to speak. And with Joel Embiid and you got Harden, I think they can beat a lot of other teams in the playoffs. It's just that in the 7-game series, I think this Boston just got too much for them.
When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you can handicap the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Something I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because of its ideal matching system. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to U.S. Indeed data. With Indeed, matching as soon as you sponsor a post, you can get a short list of quality candidates whose resume on Indeed match your job description. Boom, it's hiring at warp speed. Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job and we'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/Maxwell to start hiring today. Just go to Indeed.com/Maxwell. That's Indeed.com/Maxwell. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Yeah. How do they tap into that offense from game one? Like, how do you do that with Embiid in the mix? Is that possible?
The thing is, you're talking about, you can, as far as, it's just that Harden, I think in that instance, that's when Harden has to be that guy. And what I mean by that is He got to be the floor general. He got to get out there and distribute the rock, get everything involved. And like Embiid has to know that I can't like be this guy who's just going to take over. And like you said, Cedric, you know, let's face it, Tobias and them, they all say the right things after the game, but they're sitting here looking like, yo, how come I only got 5 shots? And this guy is coming in getting 30, whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that's where Harden, when the Sixers were at their best, Harden was getting like 10, 11, 12 assists. And like at least 5 of those assists went to Embiid, but he was feeding a lot of other people. So in order for the Sixers to have success, it has to be through Harden, not through him doing that step back and hitting them threes. It's through him getting everybody else involved.
And you know, think about it. He did that versus Brooklyn. He was able to do that because Brooklyn doubled too quickly. And when they were double teaming, he was essentially looking over that double team and he was just throwing the ball to the corners. One of the things that was interesting that I learned yesterday, I was doing TV and they came back and they told me, said, well, Max, you know, you made the list. I was like, what list? He said, some radio station here in Philly had the top 10 most hated Celtics of all time. I was number 7. I was number 7 on the list.
You number 7? Damn.
That's because you used to talk all that trash.
Yeah, but and you know what? And the funny thing about it, I believe that probably, and I didn't see the list, but I guarantee you Al Horford is probably near the top right now, thinking about how 76ers felt like they were scorned when they got Al. He didn't play as well, but you bought him in for the wrong thing. You bought him in really because he was a guy who could contain Joel Embiid, and then you didn't use him. You sit him in the corners, and now you want him to score, and that's not Al's game. So I think Al might have been one of the guys at the top of the list.
Yeah, I would agree. That whole Al Horford experiment was bad, and it wasn't Al's fault. Now he got a lot of flack. If you notice, a lot of people will say that him and Embiid couldn't play together, right? That wasn't totally true. The problem was Ben Simmons couldn't shoot the ball. So when you got all 3 of them together, so like if one of the 3 didn't play, then Al was good. But if all 3 of them was there, it goes to a point where, like you said, the corner, because Ben had to be at the dunker spot, right? He couldn't go elsewhere. So that means Al went places. And it was kind of sort of like they was using him as like a stretch big because he has that skill set. But it was like, we all know how he's in the pick and pop and all that other things. So it really was bad. And the funny part about it is like a lot of the fans was like, oh, he's trash. And then when he goes back to Boston, they're mad because, oh, now he wants to play. And it's like, it's not him. It was the way he was being utilized, you know?
Yeah. The system did not allow Al to use his skill set. And you said, this organization, to me, when I think about Philly, when you bring up Ben Simmons, man, you had a lot of just kind of turmoil in here that you look over the years, considering you got one of the best players around. And then you go to the draft, and who do you take? A guy who essentially couldn't shoot anymore. And, you know, that was another thing that hurt you. Yeah. I'll let you talk about it. Go ahead.
I'll say you clowning. You know what? The process. So when you think of the process was what? They started, 2013-14 season.
14, yeah.
So, you know, they started with Nerlens Noel. And then after that, they went out and got Joel, who didn't play for 2 years. Then they got Jahlil Okafor, right? So Jahlil Okafor is not even in the league.
You forgot about that dude anyway, yeah.
Right? He's not even in the league. So then you got Ben Simmons, right? And then it was Markelle Fultz. Cool. And you look at they had so many lottery picks. And Embiid is the only one left on the team. Now, they did draft the guy Furkan Korkmaz and Ben Simmons draft, right? But of all those people that they drafted, first-round picks, like, is only Joel and this guy Furkan. And Furkan was a guy who asked to be traded, and they couldn't trade him, right? So, I mean, seriously, he asked to be traded, and they couldn't trade him. So you look at the process and you say to yourself, was that a success? And then the thing is, we look at this. So you look at the Celtics were bad too at that time. Like when they first started, like the Sixers had a better record than the Celtics that first year. But then all of a sudden they made the right moves. And next thing you know, you had Isaiah Thomas, you had Al that came in there. They were still playing for Eastern Conference Finals. They couldn't beat Cleveland. But then all of a sudden they go through another rebuild. And now you look at what they have now. So it was a tough time for Philadelphia, man, because they kept going after guys. And the funny part is the one dude who's here is the one who missed his first 2 years and people thought he wasn't going to play a game.
Wow.
And he missed a big chunk of that third year too, right?
Yeah. He played 33 games.
Yeah, you do say that, but man, how big was the Simmons fiasco? Was that even bigger? Was that even more of a soap opera?
Yeah, that was kind of bad. I know he's talking trash. He's talking trash. It was, you know what?
He's like, how bad was that? Tell me, Keith.
But see, the one thing worse than the Simmons thing, I think, to the people in Philly was trading with Boston for Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, I feel like Sixers fans either forgot or they just kind of let it slide. Like that was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and then you think, and I feel bad for Brian Colangelo because, we talk about the Bargnani trade. I mean, he drafted Bargnani in Toronto, first overall. He drafted Ben Simmons first overall. Mm-hmm. He drafted Markelle Fultz first overall, and then gave Danny Ainge all those draft picks, right? So, that's crazy. And then he got caught with the burner account. So it was it was bad for him. It was bad.
Well, let's put things in perspective though. Everybody says that the Celtics did whatever they wanted, but the Celtics were the one with the first pick in the draft. But they could have taken Tatum anyway if they wanted to, but they were so sure that Philly wanted him that they were able to give up a pick, and then they got the guy they wanted to later on with the third pick. They kind of flip-flop. Philly kind of shot themselves in the foot because
they got a little bit aggressive.
They weren't going to get. You weren't going to get Tatum at number 3 anyway, regardless of what everybody thinks. You weren't going to get that dude.
No, the dude didn't want to work out for him, remember? He didn't want to work out for him in the pre-draft. So Tatum, that's the one thing I like from what they were saying is, I don't know how true this part was, but he didn't want to play with Ben Simmons, I guess. I don't know. But I know, like, he didn't want to work out for him. The whole thing was, when you look back at it, Markelle Fultz was supposed to be that guy, though. He was supposed to be the combo guard that everybody liked. Now, the problem is, and you know more than I do, probably you heard this, he worked out for Boston and they didn't see it. Like, the owner was like, yo, what's going on? Like, this ain't working out, right? Like, I don't like this, right? Yeah. So, then what happened is he comes to the Sixers, and I'll be there. Like, I'll be honest with you. They had, and I shouldn't be telling Cedric this, but I'm an objective reporter. But they had,
man, keep the Philly ties to the side. There you go.
They had De'Aaron Fox, right? So De'Aaron Fox came in and worked out the same day that Markelle came to Philly. Now, it took Markelle forever to get there, and you later found out the reason why it took so long is because he wasn't going to work out for the Sixers unless the trade became official, like behind closed doors. So Danny was duping them, right? They was trying to do all this. So
because he was ecstatic about Boston. He said he could see himself there. He did the whole thing, the whole speech with the
he said that, but he wanted to go to Philly. I mean, the thing about Boston, because IT was there at the time, he thought he was going to be there, this and that. Yeah. Like, he wanted to go somewhere where he thought he was going to be the man. But it didn't happen that way in Philly either. But the deal is, and plus Philly is closer to where he lives at in the DC area, his family. So, but the thing was, De'Aaron Fox was doing this workout, and they said Fox couldn't shoot, right? That's what they told us. And Fox did the workout, and then all of a sudden Markelle came in and did it. And Markelle was so bad missing shots and the media was in there videotaping it and putting it on Twitter that Brian Colangelo looked over and just ended the workout. That's how bad it was. And when we walked out, we was like, yo, the other dude is better. And the other dude is better. Like, you knew right then and there. And then Cedric, look, I'm gonna make you happy. I'm gonna make you happy on this one. So they draft them first overall, right? And they had like they had the press conference. And if you go into their practices, they had like the press conference in the practice gym. Now, Ben Simmons was never around the media, never. But he showed up this morning. So we all came in there. They got the camera crew and everything. Ben was on the side doing workouts, right? Now, it was Markelle's day. So Ben is taking the ball, slamming it off the wall, catching it. Boom! So you see all the cameras, they all like where Markelle was supposed to be. All the cameras turn over and everybody getting B-roll of Ben, right? So I looked at another reporter and I said, yo, Markelle in trouble. Because it was kind of like a dog staking claim to his territory. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, he was doing all that. And then all of a sudden, when they got there, I guess Markelle thought he was going to be the point guard. Ben was. And it was kind of like Markelle was the dude off in the corner. Now he's thinking like, I'm the first overall pick. I'm off in the corner. But Ben was also the first overall pick. Both of them wanted to be rookie of the year. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. So that was the biggest problem right there. That was it. That was the biggest problem.
And then, 6 years later, Joel Embiid is awarded the MVP. It's about time, Keith, right? I mean, I'm sure you had him at the top of your list, but I just feel like this was the year, right? I'm like, this is the year where he's earned it. He's earned it, and he's just pushed this team, as far as he did throughout the regular season. And you look at the numbers, man, it was incredible. It was an incredible run. So I'm happy that they got it right, obviously, right, in getting Embiid to be the MVP.
Yeah, now I didn't vote for him. I mean, I voted for him this year. I voted for him last year, but the other year I didn't. And it was times when I didn't vote for him first team All-NBA. I didn't think he deserved it. Like, I like Joel, and the one thing is I think he respects me because I'm the one, like, I don't think you like better than this dude, and I'm not going to vote for you. But what happened is when you look at the 76ers and you look at the last game against Boston that they played in the regular season, Boston was without two starters because Robert Williams was a starter, right, at that particular time. And Joel Embiid had to have 53 and 13 to beat him, right, that way. So that tells you how.
You're right. And the Celtics actually had a chance to win that game at the end. Even with him, but Tatum had a shot in the corner and missed it, would have tied it up or could have made a three. But, man, that was eye-opening to see what Joel Embiid had to do just for them to be in that conversation to beat the Celtics.
It was crazy because if you look at it, they weren't even really trying to guard him. And then it got to, you remember when Blake came in? So Blake came in the fourth quarter. I think that's when the coach was like, yo, we can win this thing. So he brought Blake in the fourth quarter, and Blake was trying to be Dennis Rodman, grabbing all the rebounds and everything like that. And I saw that. But outside of that game, a lot of people don't think about when they played the Utah Jazz. So Embiid.
Well, I was going to say real quick, if I could interject here, I feel like Blake, he had a little extra motivation that game going up against Doc. Like, I feel like he's when he gets those opportunities, especially against Doc, he wants to stick it to him. But yeah, I'm with you though.
That was crazy when he clowned him on the no adjustments. Right.
Oh, you saw that? Okay,
yeah. I saw that. But when they played Utah, and it was like, early in the year. And Embiid had 59 and 7 blocks, and I forget how many rebounds. And it was crazy because whenever they would take Embiid out of the game, Utah would go on a run. And Embiid scored, I believe, all their points in the fourth quarter, all of them. And it was like, we were like saying, dang, if he scored 57, they would have lost. If he'd have blocked 6 shots, they would have lost. And that's when I was like, I got to give this guy the MVP because it's here. Like, so that's how big he is to this team.
Yeah, and for some people, that last performance against Boston was sort of the icing on the cake. It was all right. This is that dude. This is his year to be MVP. Max, what's your take on it? What do you say?
Well, I mean, that's what Doc said. Doc Rivers said that best. He said after Joel Embiid had the 50-plus game against the Celtics, he said, this MVP thing is over now.
Oh, that's right. He did say that.
Joel Embiid is the MVP. Doc Rivers will stand up for his guys, especially a guy like Joel Embiid. We saw him with Kevin Garnett. We saw him with Paul Pierce. We saw him with Ray. He loves those veteran guys who play like that. And Joel Embiid is a load. I just think the combinations that he has, if you're looking for James Harden to be James Harden of 6 or 7 years ago, I think you're biting up the wrong tree. You're barking up the wrong tree. He dominated. He dominated that game, the first game, and he was extraordinary. But now the Celtics have made an adjustment. You put a bigger, stronger guy on it, trap him a little bit more. And the biggest thing, there is no room for him to operate. How many times do I see him and Joel Embiid standing beside each other trying to score the ball? I'm like, dude, you need some space out there. They weren't getting space out there with Joel Embiid and Harden trying to work that post. And it was just kind of ugly to see. And the fact that the 76ers did not have any other scorers off the bench. That's why tomorrow's game will tell me more than anything about this series. If the Celtics win this game, which I feel they can, the 76ers are in a lot of trouble. 76ers have to extend this series. It has to go 6-7 games for them to possibly win it.
I will agree with that. I kept saying, Game 3 is going to tell us a lot about the Sixers. And from the standpoint of, you look at it, it's you get them when you – I feel like when you lose by 34 points, that plane ride home is like the longest plane ride. You can't sleep at night. You can't wait to get back in the gym. You can't do all that other stuff. And when you win by 34 points, especially to a team like, let's say, Joel Embiid is 1-9 against Boston in the playoffs, you tend to think like, yo, this is going to be easy a little bit. And then you factor in, like, they're going to be in Philadelphia, where I tell you, they hate the Celtics. They hate everything about Boston, the city. Like, when they see black people, like, y'all got black people? Like, that's how bad it is.
I can't stand that question, yo. I can't fucking stand it.
I'm just telling you, man. Like,
no, you're right, though. You're spot on.
We can talk about it, but I'm telling you, dude.
You're spot on.
We were like, you don't like anything about Boston, anything.
Well, Max had a rant. Well, Max, I'll let you tell the story. What happened when you checked into the hotel?
Yeah. He said, but so here's my thing, and you know this, man. So if and then the energy, the people, I'm telling you, man. I think the people, I don't know, but I think because Boston used to win those games, a lot of those big games. So it's like the hate is more so, I think, on the Philly side, a little more so. Yeah, so you got all that going on. You're going to get this guy the trophy before the game. So everybody's going to be on 10. And if they lose, they could be in trouble because they got everything on them, everything on their side. And if they lose, they could be in trouble.
Well, let me say this, since you were talking about Philadelphia and Boston. It had to be, and this is in my broadcasting career, and I would say maybe 10 or 11 years ago, I was watching a parade in Philly, and they had some people in blackface. It was the what was it?
The Mummers. That was longer than 10. That was a long time ago.
What?
Yeah, when the hell is this, man?
Yeah, it wasn't 11 years ago.
I must have missed the news that day.
Talking about the Mummers parade.
The Mummers parade. Yeah. That's the last time I remember seeing. I was like, I officially saw black, some white people in blackface. I was like,
look at Max trying to be like Philly's more racist than Boston.
Yeah, nah. All I know is we saw the story where they hit the dude with the pole, See, the thing about
man, now we go way back.
Yeah, we're going way back. But so
flagpole, yeah, we know that guy.
Tell you, I mean, like, dude, I'm telling you, I remember Michael Carter Williams. So I can't, Michael Carter Williams from Boston area. So I met his pop. I was like, yo, man, you cool. He like, why wouldn't I be? Like, dude, he's from Boston. Like, you know what I mean?
Wow.
I'm telling you, man.
There was Noel. Noel's he's from Everett, right down the street.
Yeah, but you hated people from Boston. Like, and then it got to a point, real rap, man. Like, I'm on the beat, and I'm like, I'm calling my buddies. I'm like, yo, man, I met some people from Boston. They cool. Like, you would like them. You would like them. I mean, it was crazy. Like, you hated Larry Bird. You hated Parrish. You hated Cornbread. You hated all of them. Everybody. K.C. Jones was a sellout. I mean, you hated everybody. Like, you did. You just
what?
I wonder what side of the fence I would have been on growing up during those times.
Let me ask you a question, Neil, because it's always bothered me. That's the same thing the Lakers did with the Celtics during the 80s. They were saying that it was like a black team playing against a white team.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of black players.
Yeah, Max, that's the way it was. Like I told you, man, growing up, because I grew up here in Boston, the OGs, people on my blog would always be like, man, why are you such a Celtics fan? This is back then. This is way back when it was like they weren't good, right? And they're like, why do you even like them? Like, they're Boston. That's our team. He was like, man, I can't stand those dudes. We grew up. We root for the Lakers. That's the.
Really, it was like that.
White people root for the Celtics. I'm like, what? Like that? But they were still in that. They still had that mindset. Even 10 years removed from the 80s. I'm like, come on, man. That was back then. Like,
but let me tell you when I knew that, and this is when I've told this story many times before. I knew that Larry Bird was a crossover. It was the day that I was in a black barbershop. And the pictures they have in there. They have Jesus' first, his last meal. They have Martin Luther King.
Ali.
And there was a damn picture of Larry Bird. I was like, in a black barbershop. I was like, what the hell is this? So that's when I knew that Larry Bird had crossed over. And it still was, it's still, I don't, we can say it. People don't want to say it. And it's not maybe not politically correct, but black people did not want the Boston Celtics to beat the Los Angeles Lakers because they felt like the Lakers were a black team, and it was a affront to the people of color that this team that was white, but we had all these black players on it, was able to beat the Lakers.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree because that's what it was. It was kind of like, I mean, first of all, you see the city of Boston, but it was kind of like you're right. Y'all did it. They did have a lot of black role players, and some, some Hall of Famers too. Now, like, let's keep it real. But when you thought of the Celtics, like in the 80s, the three people that came to mind was Bird, McHale, and Danny, right? So everybody looked at them and said, we can't lose to them because you look at Bird. And he didn't look real athletic. McHale had
why would you say that? Why would
he didn't look athletic?
No.
He didn't talk about that.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about why would you say the people you thought of? Because
you know why, Max? Can I say it?
I'm just saying. Hold on, Josue.
Larry Bird was cold, man. That's why I thought of it.
Larry Bird was cold-blooded. But you had Robert Parrish was a Hall of Famer.
Of course.
Dennis Johnson was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
I was a Finals MVP. So the guys that you talk about.
But I'm saying the people that people didn't like. So that's what I'm talking about.
Because those were the ones that had that lasting effect.
They the ones. They the ones that people didn't like. And you know what it was? It was the one. And you know what? Like, if we really want to be real about it,
keep it real.
Really, like, it wasn't. See, what it was is it was like, it's kind of like, name a white guard in the NBA who's gritty. Just name one. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you one. T.J. McConnell, who used to play for the Sixers in Indiana. So where is, and I like T.J. I covered him in high school, college, and the pros. Right. It's kind of crazy how it worked out, but I did, right, on different levels. So, but the thing is, what you get is, I think you get some, if we're gonna be real, you get some black people who they go to the game and they look over and they sitting cool. And then all of a sudden they look over and they see a white guy like, go ahead, Larry Bird. Go ahead, TJ. And they like, man, we don't.
Max. Right now,
that's what it is.
It's Pritchard.
Yeah,
right now, it's Pritchard.
That's what it is. It's kind of like, okay, now you didn't cheer for Marcus Smart, but you're going to cheer for Pritchard.
Right.
You talking about
Keith, guess what? And you can go in the store and you'll find a Pritchard jersey. Like that's because they know that. Right. All right. And this episode of Cedric Maxwell Podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. If you haven't already, head to FanDuel.com/Boston. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now new customers can get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's right. $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I always tell people the in-game betting is where it's at. You get a feel for the game, get a good idea of who you want to bet on, and then you make that bet. But with this, even if you get it wrong, they're trying to get that money back to you so you can go out, bet again, and make some more money. That's right. FanDuel is doing that just because you're watching us on the Cedric Maxwell Podcast, CLNS Media. So make sure you head to FanDuel.com/Boston and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sports book, FanDuel, the official betting partner of the NBA.
Hey, but like when you talk about it, it's kind of like I just felt like it was the fact that you got the people who like rooted for. Like the black people saw them rooting for the white guys, but they weren't rooting for the black guys. And then all of a sudden it became that bravado, like, hey, we're going to beat you on the court. Like one of those type things. But when you look at it, like, let's be real. You had the black coach, not the first black coach, but he was one of the best coaches in the NBA in KC Jones, right? A great coach. You said Dennis Johnson from Compton. Like we ain't talking about, he wasn't from like Hollywood. He wasn't from Beverly Hills. He was from Compton. You know what I'm saying? So you did have that, but it was like people felt like the ones who were celebrated were Larry Bird, Danny Ainge, Kevin McHale. And then when Bill Walton joined the team, you know what I mean? That's what they felt like they were the ones celebrated. You know, because even like, was it Gerald Henderson? Like he played for y'all. I mean, man played with a neck brace one game. I was like, whoa, right? I mean, he did. He played with a neck brace. You're like, yo, what's going on? They don't do that nowadays.
How did they get away with that back then? That was wild.
Dudes didn't care back then. Dudes were gonna play, but you know, you mentioned that subject, and I don't think I've ever really said it as much, but to me, it was always so disrespectful.
Yeah, Max hates that.
Being a black player in Boston and not being cheered by other people of color because I played in Boston. And remember that, you know, not Michael Thompson. I was about to give him a lot, but we were going on. We talked about all those people that were with the Lakers at that time. And we say, man, yeah, and they would talk about us, but I remember very distinctly Michael Cooper calling us Fiddler from Roots, saying we were Chicken Joel. Yeah. He called my buddy ML Carr that, and it was just it just resonates even now that, you know, just that black and white thing, which still today, you know, kind of bothers me. But it bothers me even more so when I hear white people tell me sometimes, like, or even sometimes black people say, I remember you when you played, you were the guy, you had the towel in your hand. I was like, that was ML Carr. And I'm like, how the hell could I play with a towel in my hand trying to guard Dr. J all at one time? Stupid. You could have said the most stupid things, but I do understand what you're saying about it. But to me, it was still one of the most disrespectful things I can think about as a player and playing for the Celtics. Here's a big thing I'll tell you. Yeah. The fact that I did not want to play for the Celtics. And not because of the color barrier or me knowing about the history of Boston. It's just I was tired of seeing them win. And I was a Philadelphia 76er fan.
Really?
I was a huge Wilt Chamberlain fan. And I was drafted number 12. in the NBA, in the lottery. And I did not want to be drafted by the Celtics. And the only reason I say that is because there was a better team. There was a Chicago picked after Boston with number 13. But where I actually wanted to go was number 14. I wanted to go to Atlanta. And I was like, let me go. And I was from Charlotte. So it wasn't any offense to that, but
it's like you see people like, I mean, you know what? It's because you grow up and you like, I mean, you just ignorant. People just ignorant. Like you look at it and you don't get to know people, and like you know what? Let's keep it real. Like he said something about the black face on the Mummers. You know, like Philly has some issues too now. Like Philly has some issues, and the cities are more similar than people want to admit. Really than people want to admit, right? So, but the thing about Boston, like let's think about this. So, John Thompson. You know, everybody grew up, like I grew up and I was a Georgetown Hoyer fan. I thought Georgetown was an HBCU until I realized that, you know what I mean? Like as a kid, I'm like, oh, they got all black people. Like everybody black on the team. And they like this and that. And then like when you look at it and you say, I mean, you know what? Yo, man, Georgetown was Black America Squad.
Yes.
Black America Squad. Yeah. And then you realize, well, dang, I can't get in there. Like, you know, I can't get in there. And then you look at it, so the coach, power to the people, this big, strong black man with his towel who didn't take anything from anybody was a Boston Celtic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's what I'm trying to say. Cool. You look at some of these other coaches, Boston Celtics, who all spoke out. But am I right, Cedric?
Well, dude, wait a minute. That line is gonna go with me. I love that. You said you thought that Georgetown was a traditional black college.
When I was younger, like because it was like everything. Like,
I'm glad you said that, Max, because Keith, there's some people we just this past season they had the first HBCU night at TD Garden. There's a lot of people in the crowd being like, "What's an HBCU?" Like they didn't know. So that's funny, man. That's funny.
I mean, it was all they were all black. Everybody was black. Like when you finally saw a white Georgetown player, it's like, whoa, they got a white dude on the team. Everybody was black, and he had one white assistant, the dude with the glasses, right? White assistant. It was crazy. It was crazy.
He was.
Oh, man. All right, Keith.
He was very much so a strong. You talk about John Thompson, very strong, dynamic person, and the way he lived his life was he was so pro player, but he was so much pro when it came to protecting Patrick Ewing and those guys on Georgetown's team that he felt the press were going to attack. And John Thompson was the dad. He was a dad that you did not fuck with his kids. And I love that about John Thompson, man. It was like you would look at that team, and I had never thought about it being a traditionally black college, but damn, just thinking about it now, looking back on it, you're going, yeah, you might have something there.
That's all they had. And remember, they used to fight people, knock people up. They used to do everything. They was names.
And the coach wanted to fight. He wanted to fight too.
I remember seeing video. They're like holding him back. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was his relationship with Allen Iverson. That's one of the first times I really learned about Coach Thompson and how how Iverson's mother came to him. It was like, save my boy. No one wanted to recruit him. It was a really special, obviously a touching story that obviously paved the way for AI to get into the league, and he was forever thankful for that, obviously. But real quick, Keith, before we get you out of here, actually, you know what? Before we talk briefly about the West Coast, I want to touch base about Milwaukee. And Max, this is something that we didn't get into last week, but we had a whole lot to talk about and we just missed it. But was the Bucks season a failure? Can we call it that? What's your take on what Giannis?
Wait a minute, Josue. Wait a minute.
The Bucks season.
The Bucks coach got fired today.
Yeah.
He was fired today.
I was going to go into that too, but I mean, look, first of all, I just want to. I want to establish the fact that the season was a failure, and then that's the biggest sign of that. And I think I'm not the only one in saying that. I'm not surprised what happened to Coach Budenholzer, because we all sort of saw that coming, and it coincides with the fact that this was a failure of a regular season or of a playoff run season overall for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, it was a failure. I mean, because let's face it, they already won a championship, and they had these guys. They were bringing in these veteran free agents to win another one, and they were the best team in the league, best record, and they go out in the first round. It's a failure. I feel like, sometimes you get asked a question and you don't really want to answer it. You don't want to make it seem like I'm a failure. Like, what are you talking about? So you answer a certain way. Right. But the thing that people don't know, that was the sound bite that everybody picked up. But also, he wasn't really helping Bud out now before that, because he was also talking about the things that they should have done, they could have done, this, like that. And a lot of that stuff falls on the coach. So then when you see the coach get fired, you're not surprised, because you think about it, him winning the championship saved him his job the last time.
Did.
So now you lose in the first round, and they looking at it like, look at these players we gave you. Yeah, he going to lose his job. So they admitted that it was a failure, but I don't think that Giannis and them helped them out, man. And, because you don't say, well, we should have been guarding Jimmy this way, and we should have been doing this and doing that. It's like you putting the blame on someone, and that's going to be on the coach.
Wow. You're not surprised, right, Max?
I am. I'm actually surprised that when you win a championship, you get a little bit more mileage, you get a little bit more leeway. And for him to have the best record one of the best records in the league, and for them to can him today, I was absolutely surprised when I saw the ticker tape and said, Dosa was fired. I was like, wow. But it did tell me that, they're going to make some moves, because obviously I have one of the best players in the game in Giannis, but I wonder who's going to come in and take that job. I'm just very curious to see who is, it's a great job when you got those kind of personnel, but who comes in there and makes them better? I mean, I think they have some odd pieces right now when it comes to winning in the NBA, because the NBA now is about speed and moving the basketball. And you look at Giannis sometimes, especially in the half court, he dribbles, trying to get open. And teams don't do that no more, especially to get a 2-point play. And then you can't make any free throws after you get fouled. That is just kind of crazy to see. So I was a little surprised, but I guess showed me anything can happen in the NBA now.
Yeah, I feel like Giannis personified the loss, man. He took it too hard, and this is that quote, that soundbite that everyone was listening to about him, snapping on a reporter about being called a failure, the season being called a failure. It did come minutes after he was asked about his free throw shots. If he had something bothering him, if there's a reason why he missed 12, 13 free throws in that deciding series clinching game. So I think that added to it. Like, man, you trying to put this on me? The way he heard it was, Giannis, you're a failure. You know what I mean? Like and then he just reacted to that. But in terms of Mike Budenholzer, I just feel like he sort of lost those guys, especially because they didn't make adjustments on Jimmy. You didn't see them try to double or try to make changes to slow him down. And the end result was an L, a series clinching L that no one saw coming. And all of a sudden now their season's over and Miami moves on.
Boy, yeah, I think he did some things though. He put one of the best defenders at the guard position on. And that was Drew Holiday.
Yeah, but Max, you gotta double the guy.
And he turned around.
Him.
He turned around and told Drew Holiday, I own your ass. I own you. And who else is over there? Who else is over there on the Bucks are going to go over there and take that position? You give me one of those players over there. Anybody that you want to name over there with the Bucks, who are you going to name?
If you're going to double team, can we get a little Jay in there? I mean, Jay tried a little bit in the first couple games.
He went
the rest of the series.
He went with Jay a little bit. Jay was not effective with him. And then what Miami wants to do is get Jimmy Butler coming downhill. And then once he comes downhill, he's going to throw it out to those 3-point shooters. And it was he was unreal too. So I think sometimes you got to give it to somebody asked me one time before, said, what guy are you afraid of in the Eastern Conference? And immediately I said, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, please.
He a different dude. He'll bully you.
Playoff Jimmy.
Huh?
Playoff Jimmy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was with the Sixers. People forget. But, like, if you weak, he going to bully you, man. He going to get in your head and do it. You know, the one thing that stood out to me, too, was how Miami, that game, what's the guy, the guy who about to retire?
Kevin Love?
No.
Haslam.
Yeah, Haslam. You remember, because, you know, Bobby Portis is a mean dude. Like, nobody messes with Bobby Portis. Haslam got up in his face. And, like, to me, that was like, we setting the tempo. Like, because we're going to go after you, and that's the head of the snake when it come down to toughness on that team. And then Jimmy was barking at everybody, and it was like they was kind of shook. I'm not saying Portis was, but he was upset. But the rest of them looking like, yo, what's going on? These dudes, like they was going, I mean, it was like old school basketball. They was going after them. Yeah, they had them shook, in my opinion. That's not the coach. It's the players.
That's not the coach. That is the players. But, dude, you know, we want to thank you for coming on with us, man. A pleasure.
Hold on, real quick, though, Max, real quick. Keith, prediction out west. Who's winning, Lakers or Warriors, man? This thing is going to be – this might go the distance.
You know, and since, believe it, in the beginning, I said I felt like the Warriors are going to come out the West. Even though they're the 6th seed, I'm still sticking with them.
Man, neither one of them teams can beat Denver. We can look at it all we want to. None of those teams have enough weapons right now to beat Denver. Denver showed me that when they played against Phoenix, that Phoenix has all these great scores, but you could watch Denver. They kept bringing them in. Every time another guy would come, who was a scorer, was a defender, and then Jokic. Jokic is just a generational player that we've never seen before. We've seen a lot of different guys, but I don't know if we've seen anybody his size with his skill set. He's slow as Christmas, but he's not bad. But he's gonna dink you. He's not gonna power you and run, but he's gonna go with all this trickery. And man, and he's smart and he passes the hell out of the ball. I don't know who is going to compete with him at the end of the day. You know, they've been talking all this stuff about what Anthony Davis has done. Anthony Davis against Joker, I don't think that's going to be a good matchup.
I just think they got a choke in them. I don't know. I just don't believe. You know, some teams you got championship DNA, and other teams you got regular season DNA and, like, you know, good matchups. I mean, again, they're the best team in the West, but I just don't know, man. I just don't. I don't know if they.
You don't trust them. Go ahead and say.
I don't trust them either.
I just don't trust them. I mean, like.
And I was about them for a little bit, and then the way they ended the regular season, I was like, here we go again. You know what I mean? Like, it was just,
I just have a hard time with some of these teams, man. I just have a hard time with them. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Keith, we appreciate you checking in with us, man, on Cedric Maxwell Podcast. He is Keith Pompey. Follow him on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. Writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And, man, one of my favorite guys to talk basketball with, man. I appreciate you stopping by, Keith.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. I really had a good time.
And then make sure, you know, I'll see you over the next couple of days. Don't be talking all that shit to me when you see me, all right?
I will.
Yeah, because he keeps it 100, man. That's why.
I hate your ass, cornbread. I hate you.
Nah.
All right,
I realized a lot of y'all was mover and shakers. You know what I mean? We was just looking at y'all in that uniform as the enemy, but then you look at it and, like, a lot of y'all, even like Paul Silas back in the day, one of the nicest guys you would ever meet was a Boston Celtic too. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Appreciate
all right, gentlemen.
All right, y'all. Peace.